All right, and we are live with the third Wilhelmius Van Diaper podcast. Welcome back. We're gonna wait for a few people to hop on here, and then we'll see what's up. All right, we have any viewers? We got Wilhelmius Van Fader, Reformed Catholic. Hello, welcome to the show. We're gonna give it a minute or two here, and then we're gonna jump into our topic, which of course is about potatoes and winning back the culture. Yes, Zoom reverse assemble. This is true. You are early. Yes, we've barely been going for a minute. We're getting some more people in here, and then we'll get the show on the road. Until we get more people, whoever's here, you have first dibs at questions for Q&A. So if you just want to start that, we'll go for 2 or 3 minutes max before we get going on the official topic. Which video did he delete? Hello, Base Crusader 69. I'm glad you could show up this week. And you actually are a little bit relevant to today's topic with you being a base crusader, except we're not doing a crusade, which is unfortunate. But it'll be fun. It'll be fun. The one ranking churches? Interesting. I just watched it, so he probably posted it at the wrong time. I'm guessing he schedules out his videos, so that's likely what happened. Alright, well, we are about 2 or 3 minutes in here, so it's time to get started. What can potatoes tell us about the culture war? What can they tell us? So, as we know, we are living in a culture war. Oh, he messed up. Okay. And we are fighting for the heart of American culture. But how do we win? Who's supposed to fight? What's going on? And so I looked up this statistic that I learned about at one point in time and packed away in my brain, and I always kind of bring it up when I'm thinking about, especially bad movies, like the How to Train Your Dragon live-action remake. I always think about this statistic. And so it's about the Irish Confederate Wars. Now, the Irish population at the time was about 1.5 million, all right? And after this war, it did not recover until, I think, nearly a century after the Great Potato Famine. So, again, the Irish population tanked basically forever. Alright, this is centuries of no Irish population completely dying. Why did this happen? Well, during this war, the women fought right alongside the men, and they were killed in battle. And I don't know if you know this, but, you only have so many women, and they take 9 months to make more people to keep the population going. Excuse me, I had to cough there. Also, I still have a little bit of a cold. Whereas a man only has to be there for 1 day, and you will get a kid. Now, ideally, yes, they will be there for the child's whole life, a completely monogamous relationship. But you can still repopulate your country with very few men. You cannot do this with women. And so when we look at the culture wars, we have to ask, who are we sending into battle, and what type of, who are we losing? What type of casualties are we having in this war? And this is one of the fundamental reasons, and when you start looking at culture wars like this, you can kind of see where people are. So for instance, people like Nick Fuentes, he is a kamikaze pilot. He's obviously not going to repopulate. There's no way he's getting a wife. Maybe, by a miracle of God, he will, but he's not repopulating. So people like him, they're kamikaze pilots. People like Matt Walsh, he's kind of maybe not a foot soldier, but a very minor general. Man, I got a cough. I'm sorry about that. And when you start to look at that, you see... I got a cough again. You see that how the culture war plays out. And you ask yourself, with people like, let's say, Allie Beth Stuckey. This is a quote-unquote Reformed Baptist woman who's very deep into the culture war. A lot of people are promoting her as the next Charlie Kirk. And really, that's just Blaze Media trying to get their person up there. And they see that she has a lot of appeal with young women. And as we send her out, and we send other young ladies out into the culture war, we have to ask ourselves, is this good and right? How are women supposed to fight the unrighteousness in our culture? Because we know women and men are not the same. A man is capable of going out there and having his whole life destroyed, looking death in the eye, having people threaten him, and go, no, I care about the truth, I want to keep doing this. But a woman, not so much. And it's especially hard when this woman is a mother. The priority has to be raising the kids. The number one way to win in the culture war is to have more troops. If we dominate the culture with more people, we win. And this is the same thing too with why one of the reasons leftists support so much immigration. They want people who support leftists because they got into this great country because of that. They had all these benefits because of the leftists. Why would they not support them? And the leftists support this issue, I might as well support it. And conservatives are against that. We need to be having kids. Everyone in this chat, I don't care how autistic you are, you need to go find a wife and get married, alright? It has to be done. We need to repopulate. And so, how are women supposed to fight in the culture war? And the number one way is raising warriors. We see in, I believe it's the Psalms, that children are described as arrows in a quiver to be sent out. But you have to make the arrows. When you send out a woman, and you send her to fight in this battle of the culture war, she's fundamentally not making arrows. She's become unproductive. And not to, shame women like, let's say, Lila Rose, who's made a lot of movement for, a lot of progress for the pro-life movement. I greatly appreciate that. But how is she raising her kids? I can't help but think with her running, a $30 million organization, a weekly podcast, tons of guests, tons of work, that she's not raising her kids as well as she could have if she hadn't done that, if she'd chosen to stay home. And I know this might offend some of you, but guess what? That's just simply the best way to raise a child. And we look at these women, they're talented, they're intelligent, but are they passing that intelligence and talents onto their children? And you fundamentally cannot do that when you are sending them off to someone else to be schooled, or when you are not home with them, when you can be. They learn from you, and if you are not there teaching them, they're not learning. This is the fundamental problem. The same thing happens with fatherlessness. You see young boys without fathers, they're wrecks. They don't know what to do at all in life. They're completely aimless. Young girls without fathers tend to be, quite frankly, whores. I mean, they're disgusting if you see them. I know very few young women without fathers who actually turned out very well. It's simply the case that in order to be a well-made arrow and a well-used arrow in the culture war, you need someone there working on you, refining you, building you, and then you need someone to send you out with a goal, with something to do. And I think as conservatives, we fundamentally missed the point when we were having women out here doing debate me bro debates. And we have women out here who spend all their time in the culture war and not at home raising kids. I mean, look at all the conservative women on, Fox News, or insert random conservative media organization, Daily Wire, anything. Even Blaze TV. All of them have women who are main headline showrunners. Their shows are kind of mid, and they're not at home raising their kids. In fact, people like Candace Owens right now, who doesn't work at the Daily Wire anymore, she's publicly just going through an insane crash out. She should be at home with her kids. There's something going on with her that's not right. She shouldn't be publicly crashing out like this, and I'm sure it's because one of her good friends was just publicly, executed, basically murdered. The stream's going to get taken down, but I don't care. And when you have someone like that, who is publicly crashing out on such an extreme level, you have somebody who is being misused. This woman is mentally ill, and she's not getting better by being in the public sphere. Her children cannot be raised correctly whether she wants to or not, because she's not living a lifestyle that allows her to do that. She's going insane. And we see this everywhere. We have to ask ourselves, is this the best use of these women's talents? One of the fundamental things we hear is that, women need to do this because some of them are really smart. We need, more women doing that or this or that because they're so smart. If they're so smart, should they not raise children who are also smart? We have to ask these questions, and fundamentally we're not. We live in a world that's, slightly, everyone is a little bit of a feminist. Everybody. Everyone you meet has a little bit of it going on. It's so saturated our culture that we're not able to talk about women in a way that is logical or makes sense. We're not allowed to just speak our minds on this matter, and it's very unfortunate. And all of these women, they're like, well, maybe their kids would be better off with their mother, but it's good for the culture wars. And it's not true. If those kids, they see, this movement took my mother away from me, or this movement made my mother go insane, they're going to rebel. And if they're being raised effectively by someone else, by the school system, by a nanny? Are they being imbued with the values that make them powerful culture warriors? Or are they being left to rot and die? We often hear the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but sometimes the apple doesn't fall. It rots right on the branch. And that's what's going to happen. Yeah, feminism is gross. You are a little late, Reformed Duchy, but I'm planning on leaving this one up, so you'll be able to see it. Gravemind is here. Alright. You all have any thoughts on this? I haven't really been reading the chat. Why do you need children when you can be a monk? Well, monks are like worker bees. They don't reproduce, but they do a lot of work. So, if you want to be a monk, you gotta actually do something. Yeah, I don't know if Candace has offered meds. I think she's on something. Yes, you should leave stream and do homework. You need to graduate school. What are my thoughts on Candace Owens' conspiracy? She's insane. I don't really have many thoughts. I don't care. I don't know. And I'm not, completely conspiracy theory, I don't hate them. But they're so ridiculous most of the time. We have to use Occam's razor. The chat is based. Yeah. Well, what'd you expect from a Wilhelmia's Van Diaper stream? Of course. You didn't take your meds today? From what I know of what meds you're taking, I'm not a doctor, so legally speaking, I shouldn't give you any advice on stream. I could get taken down. But that's probably based. Here are your thoughts. They're wrong. Yeah. Well, of course they are. Alright. Well, I think we will move now into Q&A. Potatoes have starch, correct. Anyway, I suppose my ultimate thoughts here on how potatoes can help us win the culture war is when we're fighting a war, you don't send women out to war. You have them stay in the garden with the potatoes. Or with their kids or something, We're not going to win the war when some of our biggest fighters are 30-year-old Reformed Baptist women with podcasts. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, schizophrenia meds do limit power levels. This is true. Sorry, I still have a bit of a cold. Preach, thank you. Yes. Alright, well. Any more thoughts? I think we'll move on to 4 or 5 minutes of Q&A. Well, maybe 6 or 7 minutes of Q&A. I'm your worst enemy who made you mad. I don't think so. I mean, I've been bad at your comments before, but I don't really care that much. Okay, look, I don't know much about rock music or metal music. So don't ask me about it. Why, I always say, why don't you guys ask me questions? I want to provide a little bit of content, interact with you. And then you always start saying, like, what is the metaphysical presupposition of fundamentalism? And I'm like, what? Or you say, okay, what are your thoughts on, like, an 1847 A train in Japan? And it's like, ask a normal question that I would know the answer to. I'm not that autistic. Just a little bit. Very funny, very funny. Very funny question. Do I prefer Gia Maria over Reformed Catholic? I'm fairly certain. Oh, well, Reformed Catholic is Protestant, so I appreciate that. But Gia Maria supports my content. He does get mad sometimes when I use the word papist. And that's just a word Catholics will use to describe themselves, so I don't know. I see them both fairly equally. Alright, well, we're coming up at about... Am I considered a Puritan? I like Puritan theology. I don't think I'd consider myself a full-blown Puritan. Thoughts on the nuking of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Yeah, that was disgusting and evil and obviously unnecessary. We basically won the war at that point, and then we just go in and we nuke them. It was completely avoidable death. I don't know, it's ridiculous. I have a lot of thoughts on World War II that I probably can't say on stream either. How many Wilhelmia's Van Diapers does it take to install a ceiling fan? Well, this is a complicated question because there's been over 12 Van Diapers. But the question is, which one of them knows how to install a ceiling fan? Obviously, I don't. But my father worked as a ceiling fan installer in his spare time. He would go around to cathedrals and install ceiling fans to blow away the heresy. School is not, well, school is 1984. That's true. Yeah, public schools are cooked. Is my name actually Wilhelmius? My channel name is actually Wilhelmius. My Redeem Zoomer is autistic dog sitter. I don't sit his autistic dog, if that's what you're asking. I've not read Blackstone's text on the English common law. I do have to read more, so I will put that on the list. So I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. If you want to give me the definition of crime that he supplies with us, that'd be great. If not, I will probably end the stream here. It's been mostly worthless content the last, 3 minutes, so... I think it was at about 14 minutes that I finished my rant on women staying at home and not fighting in the culture war. You're not autistic, but you still watch my videos. Are you autistic? Yes. Yes, you are. Yeah, every history teacher spreads misinformation on medieval history. Ultimately, the only way to properly learn history is to learn history like a medieval. You gotta read source texts, and it's kind of hard to do, but if you do it, you realize you're basically lied to all the time. And that's because we teach things with certain biases, and certain misinformations get widespread, and they just don't get corrected. So you're not going to find the same thing in ancient texts. They have their own different biases, so... Yeah, and if you read an ancient medieval text, you're going to find very different answers to all the world's questions than you are about anything else. So, ironically, the way to solve the bad teachers epidemic is to actually teach like a medieval. It's almost like medieval education was pretty good, although I think Martin Luther improved it. Stone Anabaptists or go mini golfing? I like mini golf, but I suck at it, so probably stoning Anabaptists. A civil wrong that affects the public, all society, as opposed to just one. Murder is a crime because murder violates rights and is affected are detrimental to all society. Well, I don't think crime has to affect all society, so I don't really like that definition. Start an autism beef. You want me to give a cow's mother Tylenol? What are you trying to make me do? If I was not Luxembourgish Reformed Episcopalian, which denomination would I be? I would probably be Dutch Luxembourgish Reformed Episcopalian. It's an offshoot of us, but they're basically like the Sedevacantists over Luxembourgish Reformed Episcopalians, so I appreciate them a little bit. Is bowling the same as chess? In terms of the intelligence required to make it happen, yes, but the physical demands of going bowling is higher. What do you do if you're autistic and have ADHD? I don't know, you're cooked. Same thing, but... Well, I started a beef with FF4F, so... That's true, I did do that. I don't know why I would start a beef with you, though. There's not much to beef over. My main complaint with you is just that you like Catholic Answers and actually think it's a credible organization, but I don't know. True, but is chess the same as bowling? So this is an interesting question, because obviously, based on my previous answer, I should say yes. But if you're comparing chess and bowling, chess is harder, because you have to use your brain more. But the peak of brain power is the same, but you only do it for 3 seconds while bowling. But you do chess for significantly longer. When is the face reveal? Probably 2027. Beef referee, nice. Beefing over who is more autistic, it's definitely me. Brain power in our Brain Rot channel? Yeah, no, we have a collective IQ of 72 right here. In this chat, because we are all brain rotted significantly. Alright, that's the 20-minute timer. That's all I really wanted to get out. I think the first 14 minutes of the show were pretty good. I got to most of my points that I wanted to. Alright, chat. I shall see you later. I might try to do this again later today. We'll do just a pure Q&A stream. That's funny. You missed most of it? Well, I'm planning on leaving this one up, so go ahead and watch the rest of it later. Goodbye. This is non-denominational Baptist version of Geneva. Yeah, deport yourself. That's not good. All right. Goodbye, my loyal subjects. Yeah, chess bowling, the sport, could definitely make it into the Olympics. All right. Goodbye. Good luck in your school, Gravemind. You'll survive. I believe in you.